as the sun sets on the NFL season. Two young gunslingers prepare for a duel in the desert.
To even have this opportunity in front of us is a huge blessing.
You work your tail off to be in this game and to play on the world stage.
But only one will ride out of town with the Lombardi Trophy. Meanwhile, waiting in the wings, a new challenger with an eye on the future.
Like, we set a new standard, and that's kind of, we're not going to settle for anything less.
The making of a champion starts now.
This is Action Sports Jax, Making of a Champion, brought to you by FPL.
Say hello to Glendale, Arizona, host of Super Bowl 57, and there will be some big-time action with two of the best teams in the NFL all season long playing for the Lombardi Trophy on Sunday. It's the Chiefs and the Eagles. Of course, the Chiefs arrived earlier in the week as a team that's really been doing this for a handful of years. They've won one Super Bowl. They lost to the Bucs in another Super Bowl, and we'll talk about it in a moment, but could be a legacy play for that man, the head coach, Andy Reid, and also quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And then there's the Philadelphia Eagles. Doug Peterson won them a Super Bowl a handful of years ago, and many of those players still exist. They've got a new coach, a new quarterback, and they are the favorites here in Arizona to win Super Bowl 57. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Arizona. We've been here all week long, and the countdown continues to this football game that you'll be able to watch on Fox 30. I'm Brent Martineau. We're with you for the next hour as we take a look at these two football teams, but we really concentrate on the football team you care about the most, and that is, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll catch up with Trevor Lawrence. We'll also sit down with Tom Coughlin. So much to come here over the next hour. But we begin with these two football teams and how they can get the Lombardi Trophy.
The game plan is brought to you by Bluebird Hardwater. Have a Bluebird day.
I just mentioned it. It's a legacy game for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They've been fantastic. Mahomes is on his way to being one of the great quarterbacks of all time. Andy Reid, one of the winningest coaches of all time. But if they lose this game, 1-3 in Super Bowls for Andy Reid, 1-2 for Patrick Mahomes, the chase of Tom Brady, we wouldn't even be able to talk about it if they lose. So it feels like a big game for the legacy of those two men and the entire Kansas City franchise. Then there are the Eagles. They are the favorites. They've been really dominant most of the year. They've played out in front most of the season. They have been effective running the football. They play bully ball. They are a grown man's team in the trenches. Jalen Hurts has got it done. Nick Sirianni getting it done. And they have 32 rushing touchdowns on the season. So look out for the running game and watch out for that defensive front because they had 70 sacks this year. We've got team coverage with our Action Sports Jax team over the next hour. Action Sports Jax, Dan Hicken, as I mentioned, we'll sit down with Tom Coughlin, Stuart Weber, Marcel Robinson, Olivia Tassley, and of course we take a look at your forecast for Super Bowl 57 coming up with Mike Borish. Well, you know what? The Jaguars made a playoff run this year and came awfully close to getting to Arizona. Maybe next year, we say. But a divisional playoff round was a heck of an accomplishment after picking number one overall this past season. They are the first team in NFL history to pick number one overall, be the worst team in the NFL, and then win a playoff game. And Doug Peterson was up for Coach of the Year this week here in Arizona at the NFL Honors. He was a finalist, one of three finalists with Brian Dable and Kyle Shanahan. And, well, back in Jacksonville, we all believe that Doug Peterson got snubbed. Dable from the New York Giants ended up winning the award. And Trevor Lawrence obviously is the face of the franchise. They invested in him a couple of seasons ago with the number one overall selection. And it took until halfway through this year to maybe realize the talent that everybody expected. It was a tough rookie season, but a big jump in year two for Trevor. And then this week, he really connected with the fan base once again. With the wall that says it all in the Players Tribune, look at some of the quotes with a letter to Jacksonville as he professes his fondness for the city, for the fans, for the franchise, and said things like, hey, this is a place where people want to be. This is one of the best organizations in the NFL. Well, Trevor Lawrence is in Arizona this week, his second consecutive Super Bowl, and he's hanging out with fans, brand endorsements, going on national media shows as well. And he also joined Action Sports Jax. We caught up with him on Friday afternoon while he was out here in Arizona.
It's a lot of work out here, just doing a bunch of different things. It's always a good time. Pro Bowl was awesome, great experience too. Definitely an honor, obviously, to be out there, and it's been a fun last 2 weeks.
You got Jacksonville buzzing again, and this time pen to paper, if you will, with the Players Tribune article. Why'd you write it?
I think just to give the fans an inside look on our experiences this season, and just to show appreciation for what our fans do and who they are, and just all the support throughout the years. We have really loyal fans, so this year was really cool to see the city kind of come to life and really rally behind us, and we needed it. It helped us a ton.
I remember when you were getting drafted and went to your hometown, and everybody said, "Hey, it's a good fit. Jacksonville's a good fit." Does it feel like that, even though maybe you took a little bit with the winning and seeing the place come to life, that it's a great fit for you and your family?
No doubt. Me and my wife love it. Obviously, my family comes down for games, and we all really enjoy just being there. It's a great city, great people. We've enjoyed our time and plan on being there for a really long time.
You said in the bottom of that article, hey, this is a great organization. We weren't sure we were going to be able to keep people here, and now people want to come here. Has anybody reached out and said, hey, I like what's going on down there in Northeast Florida?
I've had a few conversations. I'll keep them confidential, but just guys that are seeing what we're doing, and either not all of them necessarily want to come there and leave everything and come to Jacksonville, but just to stop me and say, hey man, what you guys are doing is special, and you can see it just from the outside. And then there are guys too who have mentioned, try to get a spot for me over there. So it's been cool to see everybody excited about what we're doing.
Is there a comfortability with the weight that you now have, and especially representing Jacksonville the way you do?
Yeah, obviously I've had some experience with it, so I think that it makes it easier for me. But at the end of the day, it comes with the territory, and that's where you want to be. It means you're having some success, and our team is winning, and that's really the goal.
Now that you're doing all this stuff, people are talking about the Jags from a football perspective. You feel like you're living up to what the expectations were for you to help flip the franchise?
No, I don't really ever think about that. I think it's just, I try to be the best I can be every day, and I think that that's coming to light more and more, and it's nice having some success this past year, and obviously it was a rough first year, so it felt good to win again and just to do more of that in years to come. And it's not just me though. There's a lot of people that play a part.
It took this long to ask you about the Chargers game. Everybody's asking about the Chargers game, man, but isn't that kind of cool? You have a signature moment this early in your career that people want to talk about?
It's cool just for our team to look back on, and we'll remember that moment, and it was a huge game for myself, for our team, for our city, and I think we'll remember that, and it'll propel us forward and use all these experiences that we had this year. It was a crazy year of ups and downs and wild comeback wins and all that, but we got to use it to make us better, and you start from scratch next year.
Good to catch up with Trevor Lawrence. Next stop for him, Italy. Him and his wife, Marissa, are in Arizona, spending a couple of days, actually, with Christian Kirk and his fiancée, and then they will go right from here to Italy for a 10-day trip and just get away from all of us, get away from football, and have some fun in the offseason. That's the next stop for Trevor Lawrence. Let's go back to Jacksonville right now and bring in Action Sports Shack's Dan Hicken. He has more on this Chiefs and Eagles game and all the Jaguars' connections and ties to both teams. Hey, Dan.
Well, get out your pen and paper. Look, the NFL is all about fraternity. It's a small fraternity, so everybody is somehow, some way related. Well, look, Peterson and Andy Reid were together in Green Bay. Doug was a backup to Brett Favre for many years. When Andy Reid got the head coaching job in Philadelphia, he brought Doug Peterson along to be his backup. Eventually, he would hire him as an assistant coach. Meanwhile, Nick Sirianni coached in Kansas City, but then when Andy Reid went to Kansas City, he said bye to Nick Sirianni, brought Doug Peterson along with him. Peterson eventually gets the Eagles head coaching job, of course, won a Super Bowl there. Hey, there's Chad Henne. He was in Jacksonville. You remember Chad Henne and the Jags? Well, now he's with the Kansas City Chiefs, been there for a while as Patrick Mahomes' backup. Doug Peterson let go in 2020. Sirianni then resurfaces. He gets the job. Gardner Minshew shows up in Philadelphia as the backup. Joe Cullen was a defensive line coach here a couple of different times. Now he's a defensive line coach in Kansas City. Well, of course, Doug Peterson coaching here in Jacksonville. Chiefs and Jaguars playing a couple times. And in the end, it's Kansas City and Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. So that's kind of how that works. Now let's talk about another guy who's related to all these guys in a certain way. That's Tom Coughlin, who had his chances with the Jaguars, right? As a coach, he got him to 2 AFC championship games, one short of the Super Bowl twice. As an executive, Jags got to another AFC title game. Miles Jack wasn't down. It haunts us all. But he did get to hoist the Lombardi twice as the head coach of the New York Football Giants. Anytime you win a Super Bowl, it's special. But handing Belichick and Brady 2 losses, well, that's Hall of Fame stuff. Tom will be in Canton one day, but this week we wanted to get some insight into what it takes to prepare for a Super Bowl championship. The Giants back in 2007 clinched their playoffs berth in the second to last week of the regular season. Then Coughlin made the decision to play the Pats straight up in a meaningless regular season game that was anything but. But as you heard Jags coach Doug Peterson say this season, no such thing as a meaningless game in the NFL. And then Giants coach Coughlin made sure his team knew they had the makings of a champion by playing New England down to the wire in that final regular season game.
The book I wrote is about Super Bowl 42.
Right.
A giant win.
Right.
And it was because of all these things. You know, because it's such a great story. Because of the situation that we're in. You know, one thing that's always been a tremendous motivator for me and a great reason for me to focus, just go ahead and tell me I can't do it. Go ahead, come on.
Right.
Tell me that.
Right.
Because that was there all the time.
How much preparing did you like to do? Both of yours as head coach, you had 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, sure.
So how much did you want to have everything in?
Everything's in.
Before you go?
Everything's in. You tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
The second week.
Yeah.
Add a play, take a whip play out, do this.
Yeah.
But you want everything together. So you've practiced. The day just flies by. And you got to be so good about and selective about what you decide to show them, because otherwise, particularly in virtue of a cut-up.
You know, people forget about all these games and all the little things that have to happen, but then you get to the game. Do you have one memory that you'll always cherish from that game that you will carry with you?
There's a lot of memories.
I know. I mean there's a million of them.
You practice for a week.
Yeah.
I mean, you're there.
Yeah.
You know, and we had what I called the great schedule.
Right.
We had the afternoon practice schedule.
Okay.
So in the morning, our guys slept. Our guys ate breakfast.
You like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did the media.
Yeah.
Over and done with.
Yeah.
Not even on the field.
And it's all football.
And our hotel. It was just like the NFL wanted it to be, you know. Patriots were downtown Phoenix, right down there, right where everybody was. We're in the middle of the desert. I loved it. I loved it. Troy Aikman says to me, "This looks like a Tom Coughlin hotel." I said, "It is." And the guys went out maybe one night, Monday.
Yeah.
After that, they pretty much stayed right there at the hotel.
Where was your confidence factor going in? Is it because you had played them so well that we can play? And did you envision a lower scoring game? Is that something?
First of all, I had great peace of mind. Whenever we focus and practice the way you're supposed to practice,
right.
And you know, I know that we're prepared. Okay, I don't know if we're going to win. I believe we can win. Things got to go our way. We got to have superior play, but I'm kind of at peace. You asked me, what do I remember? Okay, I remember the Friday afternoon practice when David Tyree couldn't catch anything.
I remember that, hearing that story.
Hitting him in the helmet, hitting him in the face mask. He can't catch anything. Eli goes up to him after practice, puts his arm around him, and says, "Don't worry, David. When you're needed in the game on Sunday, you'll be there for us. We know that."
He was. David Tyree was making arguably the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. The Giants won that day, and Coughlin restored the New York Football Giants to the NFL elite, but they weren't through yet. Later in the show, the highs and lows of being an NFL football coach through Tom's eyes. Right now, though, we are focused on the Jags, a playoffs team in 22. What does 23 have in store for Trevor and our Jaguars? We'll discuss as we talk NFL and the Super Bowl on making of a champion. And Gators everywhere in this year's Super Bowl. On the Chiefs, Dunlap, Kadarius Toney, the punter, Tommy Townsend, running back, P. Ryan. Philadelphia has Tyree Cleveland, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Fred Johnson on the offensive line.
This is Action Sports Jacks, Making of a Champion, brought to you by FPL.
And Lawrence lofting it for Kirk, got it for the touchdown. Christian Kirk on terrific.
A touchdown to Christian Kirk in that divisional playoff game. Jags were a few plays away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And if they made those few plays, won that game, they would have been one game away by beating the Cincinnati Bengals, to coming here to Arizona for Super Bowl 57. Hey, take a look in Arizona and Glendale and what they can do. They can actually move the entire field outside that stadium and let it get some sun and grow grass. It's unbelievable what they can do with modern technology and inside those stadiums, and one of the best here in Glendale, Arizona, and that's why it hosts Super Bowls and also college football national championships. Welcome back, everybody, to Arizona. We are in Phoenix right now. Glendale just up the road, about 20 minutes, and that's where the Eagles and the Chiefs will play on Sunday on Fox 30. Meanwhile, the Jaguars have had a presence here all week long. We already caught up with Trevor Lawrence, but also players like Tyler Shatley, who was here as a nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. Christian Kirk, who has a place out here, is from Scottsdale and obviously played and started his career in Arizona. He was making his rounds earlier in the week on Radio Row. Zay Jones and Travis Etienne as well, just some of the Jags' presence out here during Super Bowl week.
You know, with all the noise, and after I signed my deal this offseason, it was the loudest. And then now, especially with the season that I had, started getting real quiet. I want my respect. I feel like I'm one of the best receivers in the NFL, and that's the way I play. That's the chip that I carry on my shoulder.
With the expectations, it becomes more, the lights get brighter. So I feel like with everybody knowing that everybody's going to work extra hard, and we all want to win. We all there for one reason at the end of the day, and I feel like everyone, you got that feeling, you got that taste of that first playoff win.
This was a long season if you go back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame game and all the way to the second round of the postseason for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now they can catch their breath and start ramping up for the 2023 season. Let's bring in Action Sports Jack's Stuart Weber. He has more on how the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2023 could get here to this game.
As America watches the Super Bowl this weekend, you have to wonder how many current NFL players will be tuned in. Yeah, they're still fans of the game, but for those that made the playoffs and had a chance to reach this moment, like the Jaguars, it's certainly bittersweet to be watching other teams achieve that goal. So how close to playing in February are the Jags?
You could say that we took some teams by surprise. Teams, didn't come out ready for us and stuff. That's probably what they're going to say on the other side. So knowing that we're going to get teams' best shots and have their best foot forward, we got to come out ready to go. And we know we have that talent in the room now. We got to put in that work to start the right way.
I think that's the mindset going into this offseason is how well can we come back to the same shape but better, because it's going to be a little bit more to get to where we need to get to next year.
Next year, when we're in that position, we have more playmakers, more people to do things, just get us where we need to be. So I feel like next year we want to be in a situation to get to the Super Bowl, and I feel like that's all you can hope for as a team.
You come in and there's a new coach and a new system and everything's new. You're kind of looking for where's the starting point. Day one, I guess, could be the starting point, but essentially you have to work to get to that point. And we left off at a great spot, and now we can just kind of pick up from that and just keep going from where we left off.
Continuity is so big in the NFL, and making that jump from year one to year two is crucial, something Doug Peterson did quite well in Philadelphia. You may remember they won the Super Bowl his second season with the Eagles. For Action Sports Jax, I'm Stuart Weber.
Hey, let's take a look at the Jags schedule for 2023. And, you can interpret this several ways. You say it's hard because they do play teams like the Chiefs and the Bengals, of course, and the Bills. But they also play their own AFC South, which might not be great, and the NFC South, which also might not be great. So it could be a favorable schedule if the Jaguars are good, once again, in 2023. Meanwhile, the Jags have some draft pick capital, and they don't have a lot of money to spend. So drafting is going to be important as they start to build this thing through the draft. 24th overall selection in round one, and usually teams take those first round, second round, third round picks and say, hey, let's plug them in there and be a starter. So we'll see what kind of impact players the Jacksonville Jaguars can get in this year's draft, which is in Kansas City. Let's bring in Action Sports Jack's Dan Hicken once again. Let's talk more about what the Jags need, because Dan, I mentioned Jags are up against it in the cap space. They're not going to spend a ton of money in March when the new league year begins, but they better hit a home run in the draft once again, because they have to start building that way.
Well, they do, Brent, and I've thought long and hard about this as we talk about draft needs for this Jacksonville Jaguars team. And I look at the Eagles, who have 70 sacks and 77 through the 2 playoff games as well, and how good they got with getting a Hassan Reddick. And so I don't necessarily want to draft an edge rusher at the top of the 24th pick in the first round, Brent. I'd rather go, well, first off, I'd rather trade that first round pick and whatever else for Aaron Donald. But if I can't get that guy, I want to go interior defensive line. I want to get some beef up front, which maybe would free up a Walker and an Allen to have better years next year. So That's one thing I want to concentrate on. We need more help in the secondary, and we always need depth on the O-line. Remember, we have Calvin Ridley coming in, so with another year of Trevor and his improvement that we're forecasting, this offense could be very explosive. So I'm focusing on the defense, Brent, and we're going to go from there. What do you think the Jags need, and what would you do with pick number 24?
I think a lot of people would love to see him load up on that offense, too. Just keep going. Keep bringing it to Trevor. Keep scoring points. But I doubt that happens. I think you're right. It's going to be on the defensive side of things, Dan. I would say the plug-and-play spot is corner. Who's going to be their slot corner this year in 2023? And right now, I'm not even sure that person's on the team or they know who it is. We interviewed Cam Smith from South Carolina this week. Maybe he's a guy they can get at number 24. And I agree with you on the interior of the defense. They might have to make some tough cuts with Roy Robertson-Harris or some other folks on that interior. They need some depth there. And that's the other big thing, Dan. It's time to grow some depth on the football team. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Why are they so good? They are deep, man. They are not only just good in their starting 22, they are deep. So if somebody gets hurt, somebody else can come in and play pretty good football, Dan.
Yeah, it's a great point because, Brent, it is a long season, man. It is a battle of attrition for sure. There are injuries, and the Jags got very lucky on that side of this season. We'll get back to you in a second. Arizona weather shouldn't be a problem, right? At State Farm Stadium, right? Due to the fact that weather is already great out there, and, well, the stadium has a roof. But what's the weekend look like in Arizona? Here comes the Chief. Action News Jax meteorologist Mike Burrish.
Well, when it comes to Super Bowls and the weather, well, there's been some pretty profound impacts when it comes to the weather. The warmest high temperatures, 82 degrees in Los Angeles in 1973, and just last year, and in San Diego as well, in 2003. The coldest, well, for a non-dome game, 43 degrees. That was back before the dome was in New Orleans, 1972, a very chilly Super Bowl. And finally, the wettest, well, was right here in Florida, South Florida, Miami in 2007, nearly an inch of rain, and it was a pretty wet Super Bowl. Well, here's to a pretty nice day in Glendale, and after all, the game will be indoors. Enjoy.
Oh, they will. They will. Unsung heroes. There are many that make NFL games go off without a glitch. But we'll focus in on one who stands above the rest for the Jags when we come back on Making of a Champion. We talked about the Gators. The Seminoles have 6 players in the big game for the 3rd time in Super Bowl history. Kando, Noddy, who starts for Kansas City, and Philadelphia has Roderick Johnson, Janarius Robinson, Josh Sweat, and Marvin Wilson.
This is Action Sports Jax, Making of a Champion, brought to you by FPL.
Nobody else in the world gets to do what we're doing. That's what I'm getting goosebumps again talking about it.
That's where they make the footballs, the pigskins for Super Bowl 57, getting those game balls ready, and those balls will be taken home probably by a lot of football players. A nice commemorative moment for so many players on the Chiefs and Eagles to come during Super Bowl 57. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Arizona. We've been here all week long. Making of a Champion. We take you for an hour ride, not only talking about the Chiefs and the Eagles, but also the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm Brent Martin, along with the rest of the Action Sports Jax team. And you think about organizations like the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talk Trevor all the time and Doug Peterson all the time and the players, but there are so many people behind the scenes that make it work and work hard to make it work. We're going to introduce you to one of those who goes all the way back to the beginning of the organization, just in a different role.
My mom joked when I first got hired that the Jaguars were, they were a messed up organization. I go, why? She's like, well, they're going to pay you for a job that you would do for free.
As a kid from St. Augustine, George Pellissier was in the stands for the first game in the history of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I was 15. I would be the kid that was standing catching gloves, and now I'm on the other end.
George now literally works with gloves for the players. Also with the cleats, pads, pants, jerseys, helmets, and anything else players need to perform on Sundays.
Like certain guys have their numbers on cleats. This is the individual players section. Trevor's got a bunch.
Pellissier had interned with the Jags while in college, but he was headed to law school. And then
my old boss, Drew Hampton, he's like, hey, just come do a season. You can go to law school later. And that was almost 20 years later.
The job can be fun, but it is a grind. One of those thankless behind-the-scenes jobs at times for everyone in the equipment room. This year was different for George. He was promoted to head equipment manager just last season.
I had done some of the same jobs for 18 years, and now I didn't have time. I was doing more administrative stuff that I had to handle, and so it was tough at first giving up some duties, and I'm getting better at it. I still would say I probably have a little bit to go, but I'm getting better.
One of the jobs George didn't give up, working with the quarterbacks. He might be the only person to catch a pass from just about every quarterback that wore a Jags uniform this century.
Can you tell if he's going to have a good day?
Oh, absolutely. I'll come in like, oh man, Trevor was spinning it today.
The equipment job is far-reaching. The fans love uniform combinations, and George's team and a select few players usually help pick them.
We have a few guys, a vocal minority, that will let us know if it's a good choice or a bad choice. We want to make them happy, but we also want to make the fans happy.
The equipment staff can be the keepers of history as well. Nobody has worn numbers like 8, 71, and 28 since Brunell, Baselli, and Taylor retired.
They're youngsters, they don't know. Guys will come in and ask for 28, and I was like, dude, there's no way you're getting 28. Come on.
For the guy who wanted to be a suit-wearing lawyer, coming to work in shorts and a sweatshirt has its perks.
Each player has a bin that we keep, any gloves or their game day loop.
Do you ever think, like, I hope I packed X or we packed X?
I've woken up in cold sweats more times than I can count. I'm like, did we pack this? Did we pack that? Almost debilitating that sometimes you just kind of like, yeah, we did it. We got it.
George has it. Everything the Jags need and everything he ever wanted. A dream job with his hometown Jaguars. So Georgia and the equipment staff protect some numbers, right? And not even guys that are in the pride of the Jaguars, like 63 and 51. Those haven't been handed out. Mr. Jaguar Brad Meester and Paul Puzzluzny. Maybe someday they will, but for now, you can't have those numbers. New draft picks and new Jaguars coming to Jacksonville. Also, George's full name is George Michael Pellissier. And I've known him for 15 years, and I didn't know this, but everybody at home calls him Mike. He even said when he had some folks from the office come over for dinner, his mom won't let them call him George. You've got to call him Mike. They're at home in St. Augustine. George, one of the unsung heroes of the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. When we get back, we talk about dynamic duos in the sport of the NFL, and maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars have just that in Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. Can they be as good as some of these dynamic duos? And how about the Georgia Bulldogs? They have had a player represented in the Super Bowl since 2001. They'll do it again this season with 4 of them, 22 years in a row. We'll be back from Arizona right after this on our Making of a Champion special here on Action Sports Jacks.
This is Action Sports Jacks, Making of a Champion, brought to you by FPL.
There she is once again in Glendale, Arizona, getting ready for the countdown of Super Bowl 57. Arizona has hosted many of these. They host the Eagles and the Chiefs here in 2023. Meanwhile, last practices of the year for any football team happened on Friday. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not really sure what you practice this time of year, considering, well, you're really just trying to get to the finish line. Just stay loose, run a couple wind sprints, and make sure everything looks good on the game plan coming up on Sunday evening. Again, you can watch that on Fox 30. Making of a Champion, we return from Arizona. Hey, everybody, I'm Brent Martin along with the rest of the Action Sports Jacks team. And obviously the stars of the game, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. But the backup quarterbacks for both teams are a fun story with Jacksonville ties.
The Coolest Player, sponsored by Wakeoff's Air Conditioning.
Oh, you can't get much cooler than Gardner Minshew, right? And Chad Henne on the other side for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Minshew probably cooler than Henne, like most people would say. That Minshew mania hit Jacksonville, as you remember. And now he has been traded, now 2 years ago, to the Philadelphia Eagles to back up Jalen Hurts. And last year, if you go back to when he got traded, many people thought, hey, was Hurts the answer? Could Minshew actually play and get an opportunity? Well, now Jalen Hurts is an MVP candidate. Meanwhile, on the other side of things is Chad Henne. He's already won a Super Bowl with Kansas City, spent 5 seasons with the Jacksonville Jaguars, had a chance to win the starting job in Jacksonville, also backed up Blake Bortles and helped mentor Blake Bortles for much of his career in Jacksonville. Both these guys just a play away from playing in Super Bowl 57.
It's unbelievable, man. I'm grateful every day just to be able to do what I do. To be here at a Super Bowl is something you dream of your whole life, and just trying to take in every moment of it and enjoy it.
It's just putting your ego aside. I mean, obviously I was a starter at one point in my career, but most of my career I was a backup. And it's putting your ego aside. At the same time, it's the team's best interest to go out there and win. So the more prepared, the more you can get along with the guys in the room, the better the team's going to be.
And he played a key role, obviously, against the Jaguars, getting the Chiefs to this position. Meanwhile, you don't want to lean on the backup quarterback. You want the starting quarterback to be a stud, and the Jags think they have that in Trevor Lawrence, and the head coach, who already has a Lombardi, in Doug Peterson. This is a duo in Jacksonville that we could see for the next 5, 10, maybe even more years ahead, and that's what's exciting about Jacksonville Jaguars football right now. Let's go from Arizona back to Jacksonville, bring Action Sports Jack's Dan Hicken back into the show, who has more on the dynamic duos and just how important it is if you want to win big in the NFL, Dan.
Well, you're exactly right if you think about it. Brady and Belichick, Reed and Mahomes, Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning. Dynamic duos at those two spots equal Super Bowls. That's why we are so confident it's only a matter of time for Doug and Trevor. Now, Brady and Belly are the benchmarks, and Andy and Patrick are in their third, but Tom and Eli won 2, and the second one might have been even tougher for the Giants in the 2011 season. 4 years later, it's almost like, I mean, every season has its own characteristics, but here come the Giants again. Was that the 9-7?
9-7
regular season
with 4 losses in a row.
Yeah,
4 in a row.
And by the way, 4 losses in a row in New York is different than 4 losses in a row in some other places.
Yeah, they were going to fire me after the 06 season.
Right. You and Eli were both kind of.
Oh yeah, Eli's the same
Eli
way.
was getting a lot of.
They wanted
gruff,
to
right?
run him out of town too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so right from the beginning there, and I sat down just like you and I are sitting with all the members of the print media, and take the gloves off, let's go.
Okay.
What's really funny is the number of guys that said, "Oh no, I didn't call for you to be fired." Just forget about me being the head coach. Anybody.
Yeah.
Just be fair.
Right.
Just be fair. I mean, they were the first practice that Eli ever had, a rookie minicamp. Okay, never taken a snap, didn't know the cadence, didn't know who was going to be the center. It could have been some free agent that couldn't walk or chew gum. Right. He didn't have a great practice, didn't throw it real well, didn't know where.
Bust.
Next day. Yeah. Next day.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
What part of football do you miss the most?
The interaction every day with players.
The interaction with the players.
Yeah. Okay. The competitive.
Yeah.
The build up.
Yeah.
Going into games.
Yeah.
I don't miss, for example, Saturday night or Sunday morning waiting to play. Right. I don't miss that. I don't miss those 8 o'clock games where you wait all day to play. But I do miss the interaction of the players and the competitiveness and the locker room stuff. This Super Bowl 42 team.
Yeah.
Strahan, one of the great all-time, zingers of all time. But the thing that separates Michael, he could take it.
Right.
I would stick my head in and look at the defensive board.
You could bust him a little.
They'd have a picture of a guy with a gap in his teeth like this. And then, but the offensive linemen, O'Hara and Soybert, two of the best you've ever been around, just busting, but it was the whole time. Yeah. Eli would jump in there, and they'd get him, and he'd get them. I mean, it's that part of it is a lot of fun too. It's a lot of fun.
And listening to Coach Coughlin, you can tell chemistry does matter, and this Jags team is a group that really enjoys playing together. Keeping them together thus becomes maybe an off-season priority. All right, history in the Super Bowl for the 2 young quarterbacks, outstanding quarterbacks. It certainly is. We'll discuss coming up on Making of a Champion. And by the way, the last top seed to win a Super Bowl, Doug Peterson and those Philadelphia Eagles. That changes Sunday. Both Kansas City and Philadelphia are #1 seeds.
This is Action Sports Jax, Making of a Champion, brought to you by FPL.
In terms of age, we got the youngest quarterback matchup in history. Jalen Hurts, 24, Mahomes, 27. And if you're scoring at home, Trev will be 24 next year. Ooh, could he be next? Welcome back, Making of a Champion. You have the NFL MVP against the guy who finished right behind him in the voting at quarterback for these two teams. But they both play different kinds of games. We bring in Marcel Robinson for more on a history-making Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts.
At the end of Super Bowl 57, a new champion will etch their names into the history books. But when Jalen Hurts leads the Philadelphia Eagles out of the tunnel to face Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, they'll cement their tie together by making history of their own. It's been over 3 decades since Doug Williams became the first African-American quarterback to hoist the Lombardi Trophy.
What a job, the second-year quarterback.
Only 2 others have led their team to the top of the mountain. That'd be Russell Wilson and, more recently, Patrick Mahomes.
We got it. We got it, baby.
The outstanding Chiefs quarterback finds himself back in the big game, and he's making history with Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts, as this will be the first time 2 black quarterbacks have faced off against each other in the biggest football game there is.
To be a part of such an historic event, a historic moment, it's special, you know, that laid the foundation for me to have this opportunity.
It's special, and I think we talked about it the entire week, and it's something that it's been way long overdue. You've seen a lot of quarterbacks that haven't had this opportunity that we have had, and it took the quarterbacks before us to pave the way.
For the longest time, the idea of black quarterbacks being the face of arguably the toughest position in sports was far-fetched. Doug Williams was the first, and even he is brought to tears about this upcoming moment.
35 years since I won the Super Bowl, now we're celebrating 2 black quarterbacks playing in the Super Bowl. I had tears of joy in my eyes because I had an opportunity to witness this.
Both of these guys have said in the media that they hope that they're going to be seen as an inspiration so that the next generation of quarterbacks hope they can also reach the big stage. In the studio, Marcel Robinson, Action Sports Jax.
This injury report is sponsored by Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute.
All right, look, the bottom line is this. All eyes are on Patrick Mahomes and that ankle on Sunday. But listen, the standard joke making the rounds, the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL are Mahomes, and Mahomes on one leg. So he's going to play, obviously. He's full go, obviously, and he thinks he can do most everything. Maybe if he takes a shot on the ankle early, we'll see what happens. But the good news for Kansas City, they're all good. They're all ready to go. All these guys were full participation in practice today. So we shall see. Of course, on the Philadelphia side, Lane Johnson's probably going to need surgery after the season, but he's going to play as well. The NFL has become a very long season, and it's a battle on the field and a battle off it when it comes to injuries. But we are at the finish line Sunday night. The Jags finished 3 weeks ago now, but the front office is anything but. It's go time. Keep building that roster. That's coming up on Making of a Champion. And just 10 years ago, Jim and John Harbaugh squaring off as opposing head coaches when the Baltimore Ravens beat the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 47. However, no 2 brothers have ever suited up against one another in a Super Bowl until now. And Mama Kelsey is very proud.
This is Action Sports Jax, Making of a Champion, brought to you by FPL.
Time to get away from us, man. Time to get away from football, right? Yeah. Off season, let it go. Italy or something? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, we're heading there soon. So we're gonna decompress and just kind of get lost for a little bit.
We'll leave you alone.
I promise, Trevor Lawrence, we will not follow you to Italy. I don't think. It sounds like it would be a fun trip, though, if we did. Trevor Lawrence this weekend in Arizona and doing some endorsement deals and signing autographs for fans at a local Verizon store. And by the way, there were some Jags fans wearing Jags jerseys that have gone to games out here in Arizona that were really happy to see Trevor Lawrence. Welcome back to a Making of a Champion special here, everybody, with Action Sports Jax and the entire Action Sports Jax team. I'm Brent Martineau from Arizona. Super Bowl 57 on the way. Of course, the countdown continues. Eagles and the Chiefs. Now, our chase of Trevor Lawrence is just beginning. He's only 2 years into his career. He will get a little downtime, and then, well, everything starts again in the middle of April for Trevor Lawrence and this football team. Let's bring in Action Sports Jax's Olivia Tassley. She has more in a whirlwind couple of weeks when the season ended for the Jaguars QB1.
It's called the off-season, a time when players get to recharge before the football cycle begins again. But for QB1, since clocking out from Jags HQ, he's been all clocked in to being the face of the franchise.
Nearly 48 hours after the Jaguars' final game of the season, the team cleaned out their lockers and cleared the way for rest and relaxation. Or at least most of them did.
About a week into the off-season,
Came here a little unexpectedly.
For Jaguars QB Trevor Lawrence, a snowy extended weekend trip to the mountains was all the R&R he has had time for. Since then, 16 was invited to his first Pro Bowl, where he got to play under his football idol.
I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. You know, I've known him since he came to our football camp years ago, and stayed in touch with him. You know, Trevor wore number 16 because he was a Tennessee fan growing up, and I wish he would have gone to Tennessee, but we've gotten past that.
After the final game was played in Las Vegas, it was time to head back home, but not for life to slow down. Trevor unpacked just as fast as he could repack and head back out west, this time to football's biggest stage, the Super Bowl. Once touching down in the desert, Trevor got soaked up in the national spotlight. He appeared on The Rich Eisen Show, published a sentimental letter to the city of Duval, spoke with Stephen A. Smith, and most recently hung out with fans at the Verizon store. While the job as the face of the franchise has yet to head to the sidelines for a break, Trevor says he is blessed with every opportunity that comes his way. For Action Sports Jax, I'm Olivia Tasley.
One of the big things about Super Bowls and covering them is, of course, Radio Row. That's where, look at Brian Dawkins. He stopped by. Of course, he'll be rooting for those Eagles out of Rains High School. And folks like T. Higgins, who we tried to lure to Jacksonville for this upcoming season, as he is a free agent, and many others. We had a chance to catch up with Adam Vinatieri and comedian Frank Caliendo, and also former big leaguer Eric Burns, who was a manager last year for the Savannah Bananas.
Rick Akiel. He's like, you coming to Palm Beach with the Bananas? I want to bring the little travel team down there to say hi. Any details, games, whatever, let me know, whatever I can do. I can't tell you how many guys, like ex-big leaguers, reaching out to me, wanting to be a part of it.
The Bananas, by the way, are going to be in Jacksonville in early March 4th and 5th. All of our coverage from Radio Row and Super Bowl 57. There's Joe Montana on ESPN 690, as we've been live all week long as well. You can find it on our YouTube channel, our Action Sports Jax YouTube channel. Anything we do on the radio side and the TV side. Super Bowl coverage all week long with Action Sports Jax on CBS 47, Fox 30, and ESPN 690. And when we come back, well, somebody's got to get it right. Who are you picking to win the game? Is it the Eagles? Will it be the Chiefs? It's really a tough call for many. We talk about it and give you our picks when we come back. And also, women continue to be very prominent in the NFL and break barriers from a couple years ago with a couple of women on the Tampa staff that won a Super Bowl. And how about this note, which I think is really cool? Jalen Hurts' entire team, his marketing team, communication team, and his agent as well, and several others, are all females. And he is on his way potentially Sunday night to win the Lombardi Trophy. We'll be right back.
This is Action Sports Jax, Making of a Champion, brought to you by FPL.
Well, here we go. All right, this is it. The Chiefs and the Eagles, Super Bowl 57 in Arizona. Who is going to come home the victor? And two in a handful of years for either team. Feels a little bit different, though. If the Eagles were to win, maybe it's the start, as some suggest, of a dynasty. If the Chiefs lose, could it really hurt their legacy? Or, well, two for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, maybe they are part of a dynasty. Welcome back here to Arizona, everybody. Our Making of a Champion special. And, well, let's put a bow on this thing with predicting who's going to win. And we bring in Action Sports Jax' Dan Hicken. Dan, I think you can go a lot of ways. The Eagles are the favorite here. They feel like a grown man team for me. In fact, coming off the championship games, it was a no-doubter for me. The Eagles were going to win and maybe run away with it. I don't know if I feel the same way anymore, Dan.
Well, I'm hoping for a great game, right? A 1.5 is the line. By the way, if you want an over-under lock, that's what I'm here for. Travis Kelce, Brent, 9.5 targets. Play the over and thank me later. But that's neither here nor there. We're supposed to break down the game. Sorry about that. Listen, Brent, I come back to, I think about these Super Bowls with great defenses against great offenses. I'm going to lean towards the Eagles. I think the Eagles can get after Mahomes with their front four. As good as Kansas City's offensive line is, apparently their offensive tackles are not great. They give up a lot of pressures. I think that unless Mahomes plays Herculean, which he's capable of, I think the Eagles get the victory on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm going fly, Eagles fly. Brent, what say you?
I've really changed, Dan. I thought the same thing about 10 days ago, and I'm not really sure that's going to happen. I just feel Reed and Mahomes are so good. We talked about dynamic duos earlier in this show, and I think that does matter in these big games. The trenches are huge for the Eagles, of course, but Trevor Lawrence even said it. He thinks the Kansas City defense is a bit underrated. Here's the deal. If Kansas City gets off to a 10-0 lead or a decent lead, nothing crazy, can the Eagles rally? Because they've played out in front most of this season, with the exception against the Jaguars when they were down 14-0 early in that game. And can Jalen Hurts lead a last-minute touchdown drive to win the football game? We just don't know yet. If they can't run the ball, can he throw it and win it to those outstanding wide receivers? I'm taking the Chiefs 27-23. Should be a fantastic football game. The countdown continues. Super Bowl 57 from Arizona. You can watch it, of course, on Fox 30. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hope your party is fantastic. Hope you enjoy the commercials and enjoy the football game, the last one of the 2022 NFL season. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching Action Sports Jacks, Making of a Champion. Brought to you by FPL.